Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Les Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join the Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club. I'm excited because I'm joined today by Shira Glassman, author of the Mangoverse series and the super adorable and sweet Knit One, Girl Two, which I highly recommend you all check out. Shira is here today to talk about other people's books. Authors are readers too, so I'm asking her about what lesbian fiction books she loves. So welcome, Shira.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited because this is my first podcast and I listen to podcasts all the time.
Yay! And I hear you like to read books where girls dig other girls.
Yes. I am so glad that today's teenagers won't have to wander through reading, wondering, where are we? And when we pop up, how soon before we die or wind up tragically whatever. I know there have always been lesbian books, few and far between, but it's just so much better now than it was. And I wish there was some way that I could send some of these books back in time to me as a teenager.
I totally agree. Oh my god, it's so good right now, and it's such a rich time for people who love these books.
And it's just gonna get better and better. I mean, hopefully, if we don't all explode.
Go 2018. So, what's the first book you want to talk about? And if you can share a little bit about what the book is about and just why you love it, why it speaks to you.
So this is an easy question. So Heather Rose Jones's Daughter of Mystery. It's the first book in a series that are called the Alpenia books. Alpenia is a made-up country that's sort of vaguely one of the states that becomes Germany, maybe, or somewhere between Switzerland and Italy, up in that Central European area. And these books are glorious. I don't know about you, but whenever I watch a Jane Austen movie or anything set in that time period, I just feel this great aching sense of the girls are not going to kiss in this. This is going to all be one kind of thing. And everything is always said in England all the time. And I realize that's because we live in a former English colony. We speak English, and England kind of dominates whatever. But my origins are farther east than that. And being that these books are set in a made up country in Central Europe, it fulfills so many needs at once. So here it's 18 teens or 1820 something, and you're in this little country, and it's political intrigue, it's fantasy, it's period appropriate levels of heat. So you feel like you're actually reading something that would have been written back then. It merges with the time it's set in, because there's a lot of not just sexual tension, but romantic tension. It fits its time period so well. And the author has clearly done 800 million piles of research on how things work, back in the 18 whatevers. Basically, the plot is that this young woman inherits the entire estate of her godfather when he passes away, on condition that she take his bodyguard, who is a young woman that he had hired mysteriously to look after him, as her own bodyguard. And if she refuses, she forfeits the entire inheritance. So they're basically, it's kind of like the lesbian version of a marriage of convenience. They're thrown together in this weird way, and meanwhile the bodyguard is of mysterious parentage and trying to figure out who she is and where she fits into things. And the heiress, she basically, when she was going to church as a child, she thought everyone could see the pretty colors. Turns out, no, the pretty colors are that she has a gift, she has magical abilities that she can use, that her prayers, I mean, this is going to sound cheesy coming from a religious person, but her prayers actually do something. You know what I mean? Because that's getting into a whole weird topic, and I'm not even Christian, so I don't even know if I'm committing heresy probably, but it's lesbian Catholic fantasy set in early 19th century Central Europe with political intrigue and human drama and all kinds of, and there's a second book that introduces a new two women couple that stay together. So you have these, lesbian happy ever afters in fancy clothes in the world of ballrooms and salons and all the rest of it. And there's tons of bi women also The third book introduces some women of color. It's going to take her a while to get her happy ending, like maybe a couple books down the line. There's a trans man who shows up. It's very like the pretty clothes and manners and all of the rest of it, plus fantasy, plus queerness. I mean, it's all the things, and I just find that really glorious. As Jews, we show up in the second book. So far, there hasn't been anyone who is both queer and Jewish, but that's fine because I can do that for myself. Heather's got everything else covered.
Right.
But yeah, they're glorious, and I love them so much that I actually commissioned art of those characters, those two couples from the first two books. Did you ever tell her that? Oh yeah, no, I think she may be in talks with the artist about using them for her own promo stuff. That post, by the way, dear listeners, you can find that by searching my Twitter name, just Shira Glassman, all one word, and then Alpenia on Twitter, because the first thing that'll come up is that tweet with those pictures. Alpenia is the name of the made-up country. And she's even given it its own linguistic quirks. Like she'll take...
What?
Yeah, like she'll take common names like Beatrice or Lucy, and she'll spell them, she'll make like a tiny change in the spelling that feels uniquely Alpenian. That's really cool. It's just so thorough, and these things would make amazing miniseries. Oh my god, they would be glorious. Just imagine the lushness and the lighting and the girls kissing everywhere, just... Yeah. And it's not unrealistic. I mean, it's got that sense of, well, we need to kind of not be found out. It's got that, but it's not weighed down by it. It's not, because it comes from within the community. It's not tragedy porn for straight people. So anyway, yes, Alpenia is amazing. They are pricey because it's Bella Books, but A, it's worth it because the books are huge, and B, libraries, at least the library in Gainesville, seems to have an easy time of buying things from Bella. So if you can get it through your library or interlibrary loan, it's, it would push it to the front of your list. And Bella does have sales sometimes. So if you're not already on their mailing list, get on that, and then you can know when it's like 25% off or something like that. Yeah, every once in a while they'll put stuff on sale, and it's like you can go and get all 3 books, and then you've got basically 1,000 pages of lesbian mannerpunk. So, who would you recommend this book to? Anyone who wishes costume drama had more lesbians, more bi women, trans characters, etc. Anyone who's looking for lesbian fiction that is not sexually explicit. Like I said, it's got period normalized amounts of heat. But there's definitely sex. It's just happening at the end of an extremely long courtship and off camera, like in any other book from the period. For people who want to read historical fiction that isn't set in the British Isles, even the second book, one of the women in the second book is demisexual. So if you're looking for a-spectrum stuff. So yeah, I very strongly recommend the series. Very cool. So what's the next book you want to talk about? So I want to bring up Eelgrass by Tori Curtis. It is a dark book, but it felt very powerful to me. It's a story about how we accept men controlling women without even questioning it, and maybe we should just have bloodthirsty mermaids rip them apart. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I have this really extensive review that I wrote that went up on the Lesbrary. It's Irish historical fantasy starring a lesbian Selkie who wants to go rescue her fellow Selkie, who is a straight Selkie, who seems to have gotten Selkied. I don't know if you're unfamiliar with Selkie lore. I'm not familiar with it. So if you get so a Selkie is when she's wearing her seal skin, she's a seal, and when she's not, she's a human, but she's really neither. She's a Selkie all the time. Mm-hmm. And if you get a hold of her seal coat, she can't transform back into her seal form, and she's also under your control. Oh. And our protagonist's young, flirtatious, gorgeous friend has disappeared, and so has her sealskin. So the protagonist, Aoife, who I understand that name is supposed to be spelled Aoife or something, but author just spelled it the phonetic way.
Okay.
I guess Selkies don't do fun phonetics. She wants to rescue her friend, and she thinks the whole system is horrifying, and she goes in search of help, and she finds a bloodthirsty mermaid who is also a bloodthirsty lesbian mermaid. And like, I mean, one of the things I love the most about this book, besides the incredibly strong theme of women rescuing women, which is really, really important to me, I also love the fact that a Selkie and a siren have the, well, what are we conversation. You know, you've got this, like, totally, this could be on, like, the sitcom of the week, you know, or, like, overheard in the Starbucks, the, like, are we dating? What's going on? Like, that happens between mythical water creatures in this, and it's just glorious.
That sounds wonderful.
And, like, this is a spoiler, but, like, the children of imprisoned Selkies have formed a rescue group. I mean, the book sets up this sort of normalized borderline rape culture and then proceeds to literally shred it up with sea monsters.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's a dark book, but it's really good. And the love story itself between the Selkie and her siren buddy is left on a weird note. Like, they're together, but it's like, are you gonna stay in Ireland? It's too cold for you? Like, this is weird. I know she's writing a sequel. But for me, the fact that they had a happy for now, and there was all this, like, lesbian awakening of, like, the siren makes her understand, like, oh, this is why I never liked boys. Like, it's got all this wonderful stuff in it, and the huge rescue thing. I mean, the rescue thing was just absolutely glorious. So, yeah, it's just really, really, really appealed to me. And I urge anybody who's interested in it to read my whole review, because it's got, trigger warnings and things.
So, I'm going to ask the same question. Who would you recommend this one to?
I guess if you feel strong enough for it, and you want validation, like lots and lots and lots of validation that you are stronger than your pain, and you want that validation to come from lesbian sea monsters, then this is a cool book. Also, if you just like, woman-centered fairy tale fantasy, or women rescuing women. Honestly, I feel like even straight girls who are into the whole, like, women rescuing women thing would like this. I've been saying since my first book came out that I don't think, for me, it's not about the princess who doesn't need to be rescued or whatever. It's about the idea that women can do the rescuing, because I need a lot of rescuing myself sometimes. Like, it's not bad to need rescuing, but to see women as capable of rescuing that's the part for me that's breaking down the doors. And this book is, like, definitely, like, the most women rescuing women book that I've read this year, probably.
That sounds so interesting.
And, I found out about it because the author randomly just, like, said hi on Twitter, which is not a thing that usually works with me, because usually the people that do that have written something that's not my wheelhouse, but it really, really, really was this time.
That's so wonderful. So, what's the next book you want to talk about?
Well, I read it last year, so I hope I don't mess up the details, but I'm going to bring up a young adult book called Not Your Sidekick.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
Yes. Not Your Sidekick needs to be a movie franchise. So, Not Your Sidekick takes place in a slightly dystopian future that is not bad to hang out in as a reader. Like, it's not one of those dystopian futures where you're, like, waiting on breadlines and stuff. You're just like, it seems like today. And the heroine her whole family is, like, B-level superheroes. Like, they're superheroes that no one's heard of, and
right.
She is waiting for her powers to come in, and they haven't, so she's just kind of like, she winds up interning for the villain, and there's this incredibly obvious, like, her crush works there, and then there's also this, like, giant mech person in a mech suit, and it's, like, really obvious that the crush is in the mech suit to the reader. But that's hiding a whole bunch of other spoilers. So it's almost like the author threw us, like, here's this really obvious twist so that you won't be looking for future twists, if that makes sense.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just cute. It's superheroes, like, there's a whole demographic of people, like, literally everyone pretty much at this point who isn't every privileged group is, like, waiting online to be part of the superhero magic. And, like, I know things are getting better, and I'm looking forward to the Black Panther movie and everything, but, like, this is superhero stuff that's, you know, centering queer people of color and centering people from all over the LGBT umbrella. Like, the lead in the second book is a trans guy, and I also really liked watching the author lead the main character through her own unique experiences with her cultural background. How she's half Chinese and half Vietnamese, and so she feels a little bit out of place in, I can't remember if it was like the Vietnamese grocery or whatever, because they were judging her a little bit, and it just feels so much more like of value when that kind of stuff is being written from within any community, because there's going to be a million details that anyone writing from the outside is going to miss and never would even know that they're missing. And so the value of the book, you can feel it. Anyway, it's got the superhero adventure, and it definitely was not going in a direction I expected. And it's got twists and turns and all that. And so it's your teens trying to save, do what's right and whatever. It's kind of got that Harry Potter vibe. Like, here's a small group of best friends who are trying to fix all of the adults' mistakes, and, like, I would like for it to be just as big of a franchise as the Harry Potter series.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
Because I think it deserves to be.
And we need more superhero books.
Yeah, I think I've kind of watched the sci-fi fantasy, like, move from thing to thing, and I think right now superheroes are, like, the thing, like, the part of the fantasy sci-fi world that are the most hip, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're really big right now.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've got one coming out next year, but that was an accident.
How is that an accident?
Because I needed a fandom for the girls in Knit One Girl 2 to be into, and by the time I finished it, I was like, well, now I want to write that. Like, I never set out to write urban fantasy, and I guess that's what superheroes are if they're fighting vampires.
Oh my god. So that's what it is? Because I saw you say on Twitter that you were doing a superhero one, but I didn't realize that
it was from that fandom.
Yes,
Awesome.
it is Cinnamon Blade, and what's more, the picture that Danielle drew in Knit One Girl 2 is in the story. It's like a scene in the story.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm super stoked now.
Thank you.
So, I don't even feel like I need to ask who would want to read that book, because everybody should want to read
superheroes.
Yeah. I don't know. If you don't want to read about queer superheroes, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
And it's also, it's set in, like, the Nevada-ish area, so it's just got this visual, like, visually it's not the same old. It's not New York. I mean, I love New York. I was born there, but, like, everything is set there. And like, this is set in, like, this sort of Western American desert area. It's not America anymore, but you get the idea. So it's just got a different visual landscape than you usually see in most books.
That's super cool.
And yeah, I think that's cool.
So is there one last book that you'd want to talk about?
I mean, I could mention Chameleon Moon, but I never actually read the re-edited version. Like, she re-released it.
I don't know this book.
What? You're kidding me.
No.
You are kidding me. Oh, I know it. Okay, I'm going to mention 2 more books, but I'll be quick. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So, Escape to Pirate Island by somebody Murphy. I cannot pronounce this first name.
But it'll be in the show notes for anybody who wants to find it.
I can play really good Irish fiddle, but I am 0% Irish, and so, yeah, I don't know. Escape to Pirate Island is another costume drama with lesbians. Everyone is always asking, like, where are the lesbian pirate books. And of course there's Abyss Surrounds Us, but like this is one that's set in the pirate era, you know, like with the poofy clothes and the stuff and probably everyone sounds like they're from the southwest of England. But anyway, it is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a pirate adventure. You have a smuggler, a young smuggler from probably Cornwall. I can't remember if it was Cornwall or Devon or whatever. Young smuggler, and she takes up with the daughter of a dead pirate captain who's looking for her dead father's treasure. And they're on this ship full of really bad men, and it is so full of swash and buckle. And it is, yeah, I mean, it's basically like you want a lesbian pirate novel that is set in that era, you know, that it's set in 1710. It's right there. And, my review was on the Lesbury. It's also on Goodreads. You can probably find it by Googling my name and the title, Escape to Pirate Island. So yeah, like this is a book that I wish more people, I mean, this and Eelgrass and Daughter of Mystery, these are the kind of books that I think of them every time I see people flailing about not being able to find books just like that, because it's like, they're not going to know about this unless everyone who reads these books manages to get the word out. Okay, so there's that, and then now I will mention Chameleon Moon. Chameleon Moon is a hopeful dystopian set in basically the superhero version of Centralia. Like, the city is on fire. Like, there's a fire under the ground. Everyone in the city was taking this wonder miracle drug that could cure everything. But then it made everyone develop magical powers, kind of like X-Men. So the government, the U.S. government, quarantined the city and wouldn't let anybody out. And meanwhile, the ground is on fire. And there's a 3-wife triad raising a son. And all of the women have magical powers. There's Rose, who I'm probably getting everybody mixed up, but Rose is plant powers, I think. I read it ages ago. And I don't know how to pronounce the name Danae, but I think she's the one with like mechanical stuff, so she can like make machines do things. And then Evelyn, who's trans and the main character of the book and has pink hair, has supersonic powers, so she can do like magic, but she's also a lounge singer. So she's like a lounge singer with pink hair whose singing does magic stuff. And then there's also a lizard man, like that's his mutation, is that he's sort of a walking dragon, I guess, and other characters. And basically it's like chock full of queer superheroes who are trying to do their best in this messed up situation and fix the fact that the ground is on fire and nobody has any water and everything sucks, but they're all gonna love each other and get through it somehow. And it is also one of the only times I've ever seen a 3-women throuple. Yes, I used that horrible word throuple, and I meant it. It's just not a thing that pops up that much in literature. There's a lot of bi and all male triads floating around, but this is the only FFF triad that I can think of.
Then you should check out The Three by Megan O'Brien.
Okay.
And it's from Bold Strokes, but it's an older book, so I don't think it's as expensive.
I will look into that.
It's also dystopian. It's not magical powers. It feels a little bit like The Road meets The Handmaid's Tale, but like less grim than either of those books. Thankfully, because those books are like horrifying. And it has a triad with 3 women that's pretty spectacular.
That's awesome. There's a lot of people who would probably want to know about that, so I'll definitely check it out. So yeah, I mean, Chameleon Moon is basically just, you know, and a lot of the characters are disabled, so if you're looking for like queer disabled affirmation and like lots of found family and feel good fuzzies, and Evelyn is very inspiring. She's very like, the sun is going to come out tomorrow kind of character, but not in like a treacly stupid way. Mm-hmm. I found her very empowering, but I haven't read the book recently enough to be able to sort of give details.
I think I might have to check that one out.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, the author is RoAnna Sylver, who is lovely person who loves bunnies and, you know.
And writes about cities on fire.
Well, I mean, but it's hopeful dystopian.
That's okay. It sounds fabulous, and it sounds really, really interesting. So you have my attention definitely with that one. I mean, all the books you talked about sound great, but I mean, City on Fire, Triad, all of that sounds really cool.
And I'm sure everybody's already reading The Brutal Truth by Lee Winter, but she's probably not legally allowed to say that it is what would happen if you made a lesbian version of Devil Wears Prada, but I can say it. So if you're looking for that, I have a pretty extensive review of that on this month's Lesbrary.
Mm-hmm. I think by the time this episode comes out, my review will be up on the Lesbian Review as well.
Do I get to hear what you thought?
Oh, sure. So people who follow me online tend to know that I'm a gigantic, gigantic fan of Lee Winter. I still can't believe that she didn't get a restraining order out for how much I loved her book, The Red Files.
I gave that one a good review too.
I adored that book. And then I adored Requiem for Immortals as well. And they're very different books. I really enjoyed The Brutal Truth, but I still love those two books more. Which, I don't know, like, it's hard to, how do you compare anything to, like, two of your very favorite books?
Well, I mean, it's an impulse. You feel the way you feel.
But I think she wrote, like, a damn fine romance with The Brutal Truth, and it has a lot of my jams all in one place. Because it's a workplace romance, it has an age gap, it has a thawing ice queen, and yeah, it has a Devil Wears Prada thing going on, which is my favorite of all the fandoms. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I had a really good time with it. I thought one thing that she did really well was really setting up that the friendship was growing, not just the sexual tension. Because I just get really frustrated with people that are in love, that there's no friendship underneath it. And that's like a writing skill thing. I've just, read a lot of fanfic where all of the bonding happens in the show, and then so you don't have to do that part in the fanfic. And yeah, it's a good book.
Well, it has a slow burn, so if people like slow burns to the romances, then they'll be happy with that one.
Yeah, and it also has the fact that the younger girl is in that weird place in life, because I see a lot of people looking for, like, I don't want an adult, but I'm not really a real adult either. Like, and then everybody's talking about, like, oh, it's a shame new adult, like, didn't really become a thing, because that's what that is. But this isn't exactly new adult, because the other woman is 40. But it's like, if you're looking for someone who's in that place of, like, I'm still trying to start my career, I don't entirely like the one I'm in, like, I don't know where I'm going to live for the next 30 years. Like, that's that character.
Yeah. So, for people who haven't read it yet, this book starts off at a newspaper that's kind of floundering in New York with the nighttime crime reporter, and kind of the big boss who owns all the newspapers comes and starts working out of that office and told them they have 6 weeks to either perform well or it's going to get shut down. And a friendship forms, and I don't really want to say a lot more than that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, and this is definitely a book that, I know what it's like to have a book that you can't market the way that would work best, because if it, in my case, it would involve a spoiler, but in this case, it probably is a legal thing. But if you like Devil Wears Prada, if you want them to, as they say on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, bone, then... this is that. Go buy it, because it's going to make you happy. It plugs into all those notes.
So, is there anything else you want to say about your journey as a reader?
So it is not easy to find where all of the lesbian fiction is hiding, because oppression has driven lesbians and bi women into small publishers that may not necessarily have the reach to know who they're missing as far as advertising. So one thing that's really helped me is Goodreads lists. If you go to goodreads.com/list, you can look for lists, and there are lists of almost everything. There's like lists of books with bi leads of color. There's lesbian and horse books. There's books that are specifically trans men with girlfriends. There's just every combination of whatever, like trans lesbian books, Black lesbian books, Jewish lesbian books, Jewish LGBT, like you can make the list yourself, and they're all user edited, so nobody says the lists are going to be accurate, but it's at least a place to start, and it evens the playing field between, you know, something that was self-published and has 5 reviews in 3 years, and something that was from a major publisher. And I'm trying to like talk coherently when there's this like feisty calico up in my face trying to bite my face. So just, like, yes, it sucks so much that it is hard to get these books, that they're expensive, that they're not necessarily going to be at your library without you requesting them. They may not be at your school library. Like, that is a terrible, terrible thing. But there's stuff out there before you decide, like, that there isn't any.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for help. Find blogs like LGBTQ Reads and the Lesbury, and yeah, find blogs and ask them questions. Say, you know, do you know of a book like this? And then we'll all sort of crowdsource the answer. And you know what? There may not be that book because there's still so much discrimination, and because there's, you know, publishing is still overwhelmingly white, and you know, the disability representation is still not necessarily being written by people that are experiencing the disability themselves and all the rest of it. But like, if it's not there, it needs to be there. But if it is there, it really needs help, usually. Mm-hmm. Like, it needs help getting found.
Yeah. And that's something people can also ask. Like, I'm on Twitter. Sheena, who runs the Lesbian Reviews, on Twitter. Actually, all the reviewers for the Lesbian Review are there. We have an ungodly number of tags on our website to make it easier for people to find stuff. And we also have our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club, where there are, I think, about 1,800 people there. So it's a good place to crowdsource as well. And it's an open group, so anybody can find it.
And I'm definitely not saying that all the books that should exist already. No. But yeah, like there's a whole lot of things that I know people don't know about enough. And you know, you think like, oh, this book is pretty popular, like everyone knows about it, and then it turns out they don't. Like, even books with major publishers. The Simon, I mean, this is obviously the wrong place to talk about a book like the Simon and the Homo Sapiens Agenda, because it's a lesbian podcast, but like, I bet there are kids that didn't know that book existed until the movie was made.
I actually don't know what book you're talking about, so
there's a young adult book about a gay boy who starts a relationship with another gay boy at his school through the school's live journal, and he doesn't, oh my god, through the school's Tumblr. Hi, I just totally revealed my age. That was amazing. Through the school's Tumblr, and he doesn't know who it is, so he's got like a secret boyfriend, like a secret Santa boyfriend, basically, and like he's trying to, it's like a mystery. The book is a mystery of like him trying to figure out who his boyfriend is, and it's coming out in theaters in March. It is going to be a movie, and this book is so big. It is with a big publisher. It's big enough that the author gets like harassed on Twitter if details in the movie aren't like 100% to people's liking, and she's like, it's just the movie, I didn't have control over the movie, and it's beautiful and I love it. But at the same time, don't harass authors about the movie. Like, anywho. But yeah, there's still people who haven't heard of it. So like, no matter how well known you think a queer book is, there's probably still people who haven't heard of it. So like, even the indies need even more help. You know,
it's true. Well, I didn't know that lesbian romance existed as a thing at all. I've mentioned this a couple times, so this is going to be boring for people who listen to this regularly, but I was pregnant with my daughter 6 years ago, and I stumbled across an Autostrada list that was on Jezebel, and that was how I found out. And it was just like, somebody did a list of the 10 lesbian romances on their Kindle right now. And I remember turning to my desk mate and just going like, holy shit, did you know that you can get lesbian romance books? And it changed everything. Like, literally everything. Because when I started reading those, And then my husband was like, hey, you're kind of reading a lot of these books. Do you think you might be bi? Because, like, that's okay. And you're not going to go to hell or anything. And it was just finding it was life-changing. It was because I stumbled across an article.
I had no idea that you had come to queerness through lesbian fiction. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I did. It was, that first book I read was And Playing the Role of Herself by K.E. Lane, so I have a lot of fondness for that book. I don't know that I would have been able to examine that otherwise, so I'm entirely grateful to the genre for helping me be a happier, healthier person.
That's pretty magical. I mean, our two experiences are so different because there I was, you know, as a kid. I mean, I feel like I'm about to admit to blasphemy, but I found Annie on My Mind as a teenager in the library, and I opened it to a random page, and it was the page where they got caught. And I closed the book and I put it away, and I never went back to it. And I know that was like, I know there are going to be people who are mad at me for admitting to that, but like, I was a teenager. I was sneaking around at that age. I guess this means I can't send the podcast to my mom. But anyway, I already felt so isolated. What I needed was the candy stuff that is only coming out now. I needed, like, solid affirmations. I needed to be able to open up a can of fruit cocktail and just eat the cherries. Mm-hmm. And all types of lesbian literature and other types of queer literature deserve to exist. But when you are, like, acutely feeling isolated and weird, and it's not anything my family did, because, like, Reformed Jews aren't like that for the most part. Like, it's more like society had this overwhelming message of like, you're doomed, and sometimes the doom is pretty doom. Like, you're doomed so that we can show how much the world sucks. I didn't want to be doomed. I just wanted to be okay.
That sucks. Yeah, that sucks and is really hard. I mean, in my case, I still haven't had a conversation with my parents. I know my mom must see authors tagging me on Facebook all the time in reviews and stuff. But we just don't talk about it because I was raised super religious in a Baptist family. And my dad was a deacon for a lot of years. And I was attracted to enough boys that I could hide. And I did. And so, you know, I'm grateful that I married someone who was able to say to me, you know, maybe this is something you should think about it. And it is okay. And it's not a problem. And then I had the books and the community of readers that came after that has also been really affirming. It's been so helpful because I was also always a reader. So to have friends who now are also readers and in some cases authors too, but who are also queer has been amazing and helpful. At some point, my mom's going to listen to one of these, and it's going to be really awkward.
Well, I mean, I hope things go as smoothly as they can, and you know, you never know. I mean, things have sort of progressed in society where there's been a whole generation of queer people that people like that can't ignore, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Truly, I can say that I am happier and healthier than I've ever been. Like, I know that my mental health, while it was never necessarily dire, it was not as good as it could have been while I was compartmentalizing.
Right.
So, yeah, lesbian fiction changed my life. It was pretty amazing, and I'm so grateful to all the authors who have put things out there. And I mean, yourself included. Like, this year was a garbage fire. So getting to read Knit One Girl 2 was just awesome because it was like wrapping a warm hug around me so I could ignore the world.
Thank you so much. I wrote it as a warm hug to myself. This is a podcast. I'm not going to explain why I'm sad. Yeah.
But it's so sweet and it's so lovely. And I'm not supposed to fangirl at authors when they're on the podcast. But seriously, for anybody listening, if you haven't read it, do yourself a favor, pick it up and read it because you're going to be happy that you did.
Thank you. it's based on a real life indie dyer. So if you knit and you want yarn that stripes on its own, Google string theory color works.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was staying with Caitlin, you know, during a time of acute distress, and she dyes yarn for a living. And I guess, like, when I start to panic and feel like I can't write anything, I return to, well, what do you know? I know music. I know my religion. And I know some of the things that I watch my friends do. And I've been there in the dye studio, and I know a lot about her process. And she actually wrote, like, isolated sentences of the scenes of dyeing. Like, I would send her a scene where I would have yarn verb written in brackets. And she would fill in, like, the rest of that sentence, basically, because I knew that Clara was, like, dipping things in a thing, but, like, I wanted it to be super accurate, because sensitivity reading is not just about fighting oppression, it's about writing something that's good and not going to get you laughed at.
Right. Okay, that's pretty cool. So, Shira, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
I'm on Twitter at Shira Glassman, ShiraGlassman. I should have gotten something silly like Baby Dragon with pink hair, but I didn't. I'm also on Tumblr, but Tumblr is a messed up site that eats messages, so, you know, you can follow me there, but if you want to be sure, do Twitter. And I do have a WordPress blog that I don't really do anything with anymore, but I probably should update it so that it has all my buy links. My books are on Kindle and Gumroad, but the links aren't really on anything because I'm a bad girl and don't have my website updated.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
Yeah, well, it's a WordPress site, so there's no, like, front page, but, you know, find me on Twitter and ask me, you know, hey, is blah, blah, blah out in PDF, or did you review such and such, you know, like, a lot of my reviews are on Goodreads. Pretty much every review I've written is on Goodreads, so if you can find me on Goodreads, I have a shelf that is FemSlash, that is all of the FF stuff I've read. I also have a shelf that's FF-SFF, and that's all the spec fic FemSlash by itself. So if that's what you're looking for, you can just go through and read. I tend to write really long, extensive reviews. I try to do trigger warnings as much as possible. I apologize if I miss anything. So yeah, I mean, you can find a lot of books that way, because I try to read across the spectrum of lesbian publishers and LGBT publishers and mainstream publishers and spec fic publishers and self-published stuff. Like, you know, my priority is, like, women-centered stuff and sort of the fairy tale end of the fantasy spectrum, and temporary, especially stuff that's set in places I care about. Obviously, I'm going to gravitate towards anything that's a celebration of queer Jewishness.
Oh, that's great. So that's all for this episode. Thank you so much, Shira, for joining me.
You're welcome.
I'm Tara, and you've been listening to Let's Do Books. Don't forget to email Tara at thelesbianreview.com with your questions and comments. And if you're an author who's interested in joining me on this show to talk about the lesbian that you love or trends that you're interested in, please let me know too. You can also join our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about these books and anything else you're reading and loving. You can find me and all the other podcasters on the Lesbian Talk Show channel at our Facebook group, the Lesbian Talk Show chat group. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate the show and subscribe. To find this and many other great shows, all you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher.